Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and if you're interested in developing people next to technology, this episode is for you. Joining me today is Ester Le Roux, all the way from Joburg, South Africa. She's a competence lead and software engineer at Hexaware Technologies, and we cover finding your strength as a software engineer, as well as growing as fast as possible within your career for you as a person and with regards to your skills as software engineer. So enjoy! On a more day-to-day basis, how many people are you helping with regards to mentorship or from a, let's say, management perspective?
So in Amsterdam, I have a team of about 7 people.
Yeah.
That's non-project related. And then project related, it depends on the requirements at that stage, but anywhere from 2 to 7 as well.
And how, let's say I were to be new in your team, how do we start off kind of this talk of personal development or any type of conversation? How do you usually start off with someone that's new in your team?
I'd like to ask you, what's your background and what do you like most about your job? What's your favorite part? To try and see if the part that gives them job satisfaction, if we can have more of that for the specific person. Sorry.
No worries.
For the specific person.
Yeah.
So now, what do you like most? And then where do you see yourself hypothetically in 5 years or 10 years time? But also, where do you see yourself in a year or so?
Yeah. With personal development, I think it's always, for me, been challenging to see, okay, where do I see myself in a longer time horizon? 1 year I can do, but 1 year is like close to max stretch, basically. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in 1 year?
Yeah, I still don't know. Yeah. I've always said that since the podcasting, I've had more and more conversations with people that do developer advocacy, which is kind of software engineering and how I would translate it. Also part of the marketing side of it, being more present online, working on your personal branding, as well as representing what a company does and communicating that to the best you can. I really like that as a role in its essence. And I haven't done that yet, but I've always admired that. Then engineering management is something I already have kind of a responsibility for currently, and that could grow. I could see myself growing into a role that does more of that. And then lately, but I've kind of scratched that itch, it was always kind of product management as well, and I've been doing that since January, which has been a lot of fun, but I really miss more of the hands-on, like software engineering things. So I'd say one of those 3. Yeah. What about you?
My answer always changes. Like constantly reevaluate and adjust.
Yeah.
But currently in 1 year, hopefully on another project. Not because I dislike my project, but just because I like change.
Yeah.
So new project, new team, same team perhaps, but new challenges. So I feel like I really like change and challenges. But it's always good to try something new. Excuse me.
Yeah, no worries.
And I feel in the project that I'm currently on, the challenges have kind of worked out themselves by now. So that's short term where I see myself. But I'm very happy at the company. We have an awesome culture, and we are very people focused. So especially when we are hiring, first making sure that the person would be a cultural fit for the company, and then after that, looking at the technical skills. Yeah. So it's the people are great. So I would like to stay with those people for now, at least.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to developing people and having those, let's say, one-on-one conversations, for me, I always see 2 types of people that know where they want to go, and then it's a bit more easy to break it down and see how you can get there. But for people that don't know, usually how do you help them figure out where they want to go, or help them figure out where I guess in essence, where they want to go?
So if they are not yet sure where they want to go, so we have the check-ins bi-weekly. So then keep the conversation going every time, checking in, what is it that what do you like most? Where do you want to grow, and where do you want to what do you want to learn more about?
Yeah.
So it's not something that you figure out in one session. It's an ongoing process. And the answers also change. So for now, it might be that I'm interested in learning a bit more about this tech stack, or learning how to work with these type of people. But then after a while, if you are constantly faced with the question about what do you want to do next, and you think about it more often, then the answer becomes a bit more clear. The more you think about it, the more you put energy and effort into it. So reevaluating, having this discussion, not just like where do you want to be in a year every time, but just what do you want to do? What do you like? Tell me your favorite part of the last 2 weeks. What did you struggle with? What challenges did you face? How did you overcome them? And what did you learn? And what was your favorite part of this process of what you learned? And then take it session by session.
That's great. Once people find, let's say, a step on the horizon, doesn't matter if it's a year or let's say 5 years, how do you help them then break it down or make sure they are on the path to achieve whatever they aspire to achieve?
So if it's in the same track, then it's mostly get more experience or do some certifications or courses. But sometimes people don't want to stay in the same track. They maybe want to try a new role. So then you need to kind of try and identify the overlap between the existing role and the new role to see what they need to focus on to improve. But also see if there's an opportunity where they can work with someone in the role they are aiming for. To work with them, see how they are doing it, and then doing that for a little while, asking them if they can pick up a task here or there to try it out, to see if it is what they are interested in, and then if it's going well, to do more and more of that.
Do you have an example of that, of a person that switched from, I'm assuming, software engineering to something else? Because I wonder how adjacent that is.
So, well, it will still kind of be in the digital strategy realm. So let's say going from front-end engineering to product design, working with the designers, or even just going like from front-end to back-end or to full stack. So working with the security engineer on your project, if you want to transition to security, asking them why they are doing the things that they are doing, asking if you can listen in on the meetings they are having, to see what they are actually discussing day to day, what are their tasks, how they are handling it, and how they strategize and think it out and why they are doing it. So even just listening in or viewing would help you see, is this what you want to do? Learn from them and then say, okay, I see you have this task, can I do it with you, or can we do like peer programming? Or with the design, also having the same conversation with your designer. What is your thought process? How did you get to this layout? So learning from their experience. And then, but depending on the project or the team or the setup, if it is allowed in that specific project, if you can pick up a task here or there. So then it would be the less complex, less challenging tasks, but just to get into it and to do that until you are confident enough to take on more.
When they are, let's say, confident enough to take on more, would they then, let's say, start out from scratch? Because that's usually what I fear, is if let's say people are a senior software engineer or more on the front end and they want to go into product design, would they have to start from scratch?
Well, they don't have the same experience. So if you're a senior software engineer, you can't suddenly be a senior designer because the experience, there is a mismatch. So you do have experience in the industry, but it's not the required experience for that level. So you might have to drop a level or two, but that's why you first try it out to see if it's really what you're into. Are you willing to take this drop? And then evaluate it from them.
Yeah, I wonder how much people have then this, let's say, sunken cost in, well, I'm a senior front-end engineer now, and if I were to have to, I'm kind of starting over. I hope the passion would kind of outweigh the sunken cost there. And if this is really something they want to pursue, they actually do so, because that would in the end probably make them happier in what they're doing on the day-to-day?
I think more and more people have the guts to do it nowadays. So this is now just from a perspective of people changing from careers that they had to software.
Yeah.
And willing to be a junior and build it from the ground up, even though they had 5 to 10 years experience in their previous industry. I'm seeing that more and more nowadays. So I think within the tech, I think if you did that leap, you might reconsider if you want to drop down again.
Yeah.
But I think people have the guts to do it if it's their passion, if that's really what they want to do and pursue.
I had a Q&A recently, and a lot of the questions were actually from that perspective. So either people that are just starting out from a career switch, or just starting out from a traditional educational background, or even self-taught in any way. What would you advise to people that are just starting out, let's say in the software landscape, when it comes to growth and personal development? That's a broad one, I know.
No, I'm just thinking about my answer because it might be contradictory. I would say get a job where you actually, for the first year or year and a half, you don't have a very good work-life balance, for the reason that you can get like 4 years experience in 1 year, and you can get to work. Try to work or in a full stack role if possible, so that you can learn. This is now specifically for software engineering, so that you can learn front end, back end, security, DevOps, QA. So if you are starting out, depending on where you are in your personal journey as well, but if you have capacity to at that stage take on a bit more than what you want, then what is feasible for the rest of your life, but to set that year aside and then try to get as much experience as you can, because then you can also see where you want to go from there. So it doesn't have to be 1 year, but a couple of months. Try everything out, see what you like, what you don't like, and then try to pursue the department that you feel most fulfilled in.
Yeah, interesting. So having a kind of wide starting point to then zoom in on later and go deep. Yeah. That's not how I mean, I really started off on the back end because I had an interest in front end, but back end was more comfort, I think, as well as it just intrigued me more. And then when I was comfortable, when I felt like I had the depth and I didn't really want to go deeper, that's when I looked outward when it comes to, let's say, software technology in the first place. But even before then, I came from the operational side, where I chose to be really wide in whatever responsibilities I could get. More from a responsibility side and not necessarily from a technology side. But I do like that. Starting out wide, you can learn what you like, and even also important, what you don't like, because then stay away from those.
Yeah, that's very important. How did you find the transition from operations to backend?
So I had done, let's say, more data science oriented things in university. And from the operations side, I was really frustrated because I would flag things that went wrong in production. It would go to a different department, and I would sometimes even be able to browse the code and be like, okay, is this it? Is this the issue? But I would never know. In the end, I would always have to chase and ask, and I could never fix it myself, or at least I wasn't responsible. So then I told my manager, like, I'm missing something in solving things because I only identify, then it goes to someone else. And it's my responsibility to keep things up and running and make sure things are smooth. But then in the end, if I'm not creating whatever we put to production, then for me, it was the point. It was kind of strange. And then back then, DevOps was coming up in more of a term and awareness. And I found myself in that terminology. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do both, right? Create as well as make sure it runs smoothly. So then from there, my manager put in a good word, and I also chased other departments. And in the end, I found myself in a position where they were all external people. I was one of the only internal people. I had a new manager, and they said basically transfer as much knowledge to Patrick as you can, so he can do it basically, because everyone here is quite expensive. And in the end, from a consultancy perspective, you also want internally to have a smooth operation, so you can leave better than you kind of came in the first place. When it came to then figuring out new technologies, it was a real ramp up when it comes to knowledge and growth, because I didn't know a lot of things. It was like, okay, have you worked with GitHub? I was like, so they tried in university, but I never got the point. And then they explained it to me. I was like, God, this actually makes a lot more sense. And yeah, with that, we started pair programming a lot. I think I learned the fastest through there. Someone would just walk me through what I needed to do. And honestly, first few times I had no clue where I was or what I was doing. And in the end, we would do it, and I'd be like, man, in my head it was a lot harder, and I still don't know exactly what we did. But in the end, we did it. So those small victories led to more and more kind of want and eagerness, and eventually, yeah, I grew from there. It was a lot of fun. I look back at that, and it's very fond memories. Yeah. What about you? Because I know you have this kind of passion for developing people in the first place, but I also know you came from a more hands-on experience. How was it transitioning to more of a, let's say, team lead or leadership role for you?
I really enjoyed it. I think it's my favorite part of my job at this stage. Well, you start off small. Start off with 1 or 2 people, and then see how it goes, take it from them. But also the best way to learn is also from other people and how they do it. So, but it's trial and error. You try it out, you see how it goes, what works, what doesn't work. But the main thing that I tried doing was listening to what my team members are saying and what they want. But I also found that it helped to kind of have a plan. So not just the check-ins, but kind of at okay, let's look at your strengths now and do. So still have the regular check-ins, but then do 1 strength per session. Or then to look at, okay, we are now doing performance evaluations. So right now, feedback is very important. How do you feel about giving and receiving feedback? How do you identify feedback? So also something that's relevant to the situation they are in. So to try and identify, is this something that they are confident in or not confident in? Do they want to practice that or identify how to do it? So sometimes I would also ask them, okay, now go, and if you are not comfortable with feedback or identifying feedback, go now in the next 2 weeks and try and identify the feedback that you would give people. So it's practical. Then they would come back and give examples, and then we'll see, okay, can you improve it? Do you need to improve it? Or is that great? Or if they were confident with feedback in general, we would just, that wasn't necessary. So trying to get ideas from what they need to apply practically, and if there is a gap, try to do that. So also reevaluating and adjusting what we are talking about throughout the year. And so far, so good. I'm enjoying it, at least.
Yeah, that's the best.
So it's trying out, seeing what works, seeing what's relevant at that stage.
Yeah, I really like that you said also getting comfortable asking and receiving feedback is a thing. And it's something I haven't even thought of, because I thought for me it's so normalized asking for feedback and giving feedback that I wouldn't think of people not being comfortable with that. So I really like that you actually take the process and go 1 step back and ease them into a process if they are not comfortable yet, or at least just ask how they feel about feedback. Because also in organizations with performance cycles, it's just, it's a thing. And if you're really not comfortable with it, then it can be very awkward. It can just be a thing of bureaucracy or going through the motions. And then you lose the essence and value that feedback gives you, which is a shame.
Feedback is one of the most valuable tools that we have. We just need to utilize it correctly.
Yeah, exactly. How do you go about feedback? Because what I've seen in organizations, it's usually 2 points, and they all are prior to performance cycles. All of a sudden, everyone gives you a form and asks for feedback. Whereas I've set myself kind of a goal to do it more often, also outside of performance cycles. And for me, it's easy because we only have 1 a year. So I've had this urge to give out feedback, but then other things prioritize and I just don't do it. How do you usually go about giving and receiving feedback?
So I was relatively new to Mobiquity. Now we're at that stage. I joined a project. This was just after COVID. And I'm from South Africa, so I'm completely remote. The rest of the office, the rest of the team can meet in office once a week or so, but it's still, people are not really going back to the office yet.
Yeah.
So we had our day-to-day, we all did our work, but I kind of felt that we didn't have that connection within the team yet. So everyone, we would communicate and collaborate, and everyone were team players. But I just felt we weren't like deeply rooted in the team.
Yeah.
So I had a chat with my competence lead at the stage, and he actually recommended that I talk to one of the other members in the company.
Yeah.
And they recommended feedback.
Feedback?
Feedback. So
Okay.
it's like speed dating feedback.
Really?
Yeah. So that sounded very interesting. I asked a bit more about it. So it's actually like you would do speed dating. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself. The other person has 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and then you move on to the next person. But now you do it for feedback. So you can do it in a setup where you have tables. But since we were remote, we had a Teams call with breakout rooms.
Yeah.
So beforehand, everyone had to prepare just 2 or 3 points of feedback for each person. It had to be constructive and timely and specific. And actionable, but with a focus on being kind. So whatever you are saying, wrap it in a kind way. So this actually, it worked very well because in this specific scenario, what happened was we highlighted the things that we valued about our colleagues. And then if you know, okay, they value that I'm always friendly in the meeting. Then on a day when you don't feel really up to it, you remember, oh, they actually value it. So let me greet them in a very friendly way. So it made everyone feel more valued. And also the constructive items contributed to the project's success. But it was, and it's quick. It's 2 minutes. So 2 minutes to give, 2 minutes to receive, and then going to the next breakout room. And just seeing how that affected the team's atmosphere and connection also made me really understand the value that we have in feedback. So I really like doing that every now and then, just within a team setting. So it's everyone you give. It's like almost a 360 review. So that's a nice approach. And another thing that I also sometimes try to do within my project team is to have an internal retro, but with I really like interactive boards or surveys. So everyone can add words to a word cloud, and it pops up, and you see how it grows, and have a couple of icebreakers. And then as soon as everyone is relaxed, they are completely honest and open about things they like, things they don't like. And once they realize it's a supportive environment and relaxed atmosphere, and it's okay to say what they feel, then a lot of constructive items comes out of that.
Nice. I like that a lot. Actually, I was thinking of doing new icebreakers because I really like those. You mentioned kind of when that group of people came together, and I think this happens often, the relationships are a bit more surface level, which might sound hard. But for me, it also makes sense because it's just a group of people that are bunched together. After that kind of speed dating feedback round, or even maybe a few of them, did you feel like a more deep-rooted connection with regards to relationships?
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's kind of easy to do then, no? Or at least a more faster way to build connections.
Definitely. One thing that I also realized on my project team that really helps is to, especially if it's remote, to just every now and then have a session. It first started with, if we get a new team member, then we just have a round of introductions. But sometimes it can just be so professional. Just, I have X years of experience in this tech stack, and I have this experience and this experience. And then it will be like, okay, let's do another round. But now perhaps tell us about one of your hobbies or what type of sport you watch. And then the first couple of times it would just be like, okay, I like to watch soccer or football. But as you also do that more and more, then it's the answers get elaborated. And then in a while, then suddenly you see, okay, people start making jokes.
Yeah.
Or people just start laughing more. And the whole environment and community is just so much more supportive, and the collaboration that comes out of that is amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's the most valuable thing, I think. at the end of the day, it's better to work with people who you consider like close with or friendly with than just a superficial, I think, colleague at the end of the day. But how do you then balance? Because this is something I want to do team building continuously. I don't just want to have team events. So then what we do is every sprint cycle, we have a retro. And prior to that, I do an icebreaker. And I sometimes I didn't come up with any icebreaker. So an icebreaker was come up with our icebreaker so we can do this continuously. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, how much time do I actually allocate for this? Because it can go, if everyone is really, let's say, conversational and friendly with each other and we know each other, then everyone also wants to give each other space to have that conversation and that dialogue and share. And then I feel like, do I need to cut stuff off? Because otherwise we can just talk the whole day with regards to the relationships we have now. That's for me a challenge.
So what we like to do within our front-end team, we also have a check-in for the entire team now in Amsterdam every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we also try to find a balance between using these sessions for upskilling, but also just having a check-in, seeing how's it going with everyone, just so that everyone knows everyone. It's also how's it going on your project and how's it going personally. But now what we also recently started doing is to just have one session allocated to just like icebreakers.
Yeah.
So just every now and then, just having a fun session. So I think that's actually a nice order that we have now. So one session just for check-ins, because you don't want to have only half an hour for a check-in because you're going to do some presentations or anything. So we decided to rather just have a dedicated time for checking in with each other, and then a dedicated time for upskilling, and then a dedicated time for icebreakers.
Yeah.
Because check-ins help for the team collaboration and team spirit, but the icebreakers are so fun, and they actually contribute just as much as the check-ins as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's in a project, it's difficult to find the balance because you don't have the dedicated time for icebreakers, but otherwise just put it in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now we just go with it. And sometimes I feel like, okay, we need to, but yeah, we're doing our best. Everyone does enjoy it though. I see the appreciation because it's a fun moment, right? And usually it's on a Monday. So it's also a good way to have a laugh, talk about what happened in the weekend and actually start. I feel like I'm also moving away from like traditional Scrum. I don't know if it's specifically Scrum, but in any case, stand-up can only be like max 15 minutes. I've noticed that since we're not in the office or not even in the same country sometimes, stand-up can span out and people actually want to get to know each other and there's room for more conversation that is also outside of work. I think that's completely fine. I think that's just how this way of working has evolved. And at the end of the day, if it makes a more stronger team with regards to what they can say to each other, how they collaborate and are more effective because of that, then yeah, it can be way more lenient. And I don't really care about what's in a book that says it needs to be a max 15 minutes. If we get more out of it, the way we do it, I like the way we do it. Yeah.
Also doing that for our Scrum Master, some of our retros, he also just changed it to a round of check-ins. How's it going with everyone? Tell us a bit about yourself. And it's very interesting if you're working with someone, not specifically in your department in the project, but you check in with each other, you talk about work the whole time to then suddenly, oh, these are your hobbies. Wow, that's actually very interesting. And then you realize, oh, you've just been talking about work.
Yeah.
And work is such a large part of your day, you might as well enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on you being remote, and I'm assuming some of your team can also be remote, as well as how people, for example, introduce themselves or tell them a little bit more about themselves. Have you also noticed like cultural differences that are there that you need to accommodate for?
Yes, definitely. So within our Amsterdam office, since it's so diverse in the Netherlands and so many cultures, it's the Amsterdam office, it's kind of the same approach. Everyone is very relaxed. I also mentioned previously that we had a very big people-focused way of approaching interviews, first checking if they're a cultural fit.
Yeah.
So within this office, not so much, but working with some of the other offices, there's definitely a big difference. When I joined the company, I received a book, The Culture Map, to kind of prepare you for working with different cultures or to mostly just be aware that there are differences.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're aware of it and you notice it, then you realize, okay, it's not that that person is perhaps angry, or it's just their way of communicating.
Okay.
So if at least you are aware of it, it's easier to identify what it is, that it's a cultural difference and it's not their personality or something that's going wrong. So being aware of,
Did it move?
is that better now?
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
good still.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I completely lost my train of thought.
Being aware of the cultural differences and accommodating for that.
Yes, so if at least you're aware, it helps. But then starting a project or working with other cultures or other offices, I think the most important thing is once you get together to find a way of working that everyone is comfortable in. So that does take adjusting and tweaking until you find the sweet spot. And you might need to evaluate that constantly. But having an open discussion about it, saying, okay, this is how we normally do it. How do you normally do it? How do we want to take it from here in a way that everyone is happy? And that helps because then everyone is aware of the differences, but we also find a sweet spot and everyone, it works, it gels.
What differences in way of working have you seen then? Because I can't think of any concrete examples.
Well, the one thing about just talking about your professional career and not...
That one.
Yeah, that was for me the biggest one.
Yeah, that one makes sense to me. Yeah, I've seen that one play out as well. I guess, I don't know, maybe it's probably nature, not necessarily nature, but nurture. Maybe how education goes or how people see themselves professionally. I know in a more, let's say, Eastern cultures, work can be actually more overtaking compared to life. Let's say if we're talking about work balance and life balance, it's different than how we have it more on the Western side of things. But then, yeah, if you go too much west to the US, then it's out of balance. Maybe even at least to compare to my perspective is what I've heard. I've never experienced that. I've just heard stories, and it would be interesting to experience such a work culture. I think it's a learning opportunity in any case to see it from the other side.
Well, there was actually a big difference between the South African culture and the European culture as well. Yeah, everyone is so relaxed.
Yeah.
Nothing feels urgent.
In Europe or South Africa?
In Europe.
Ah, okay.
So that also took some adjusting, but knowing, okay, it's not that people in Europe are lazy. It's a work-life balance.
Yeah. That's hilarious, by the way, because it can still be lazy and people just say, nah, it's work-life balance.
Yeah, so that was at first my initial thought, but then I realized, no, it's the way of life, yeah. And now I love it.
Yeah, that's good. That's funny. You mentioned strength or at least having conversations about people's strengths. And I think I know better now, but previously when people would be like, okay, what are your strengths? I know weaknesses. Weaknesses for me are easy. Maybe this is also how I was raised, because if I have to give feedback, I can give very concrete negative feedback, but positive feedback is hard for me. So maybe this is the same with strengths. But in any case, how do you help people figure out kind of what strengths they have? And even then, what is next with regards to personal development?
I have a tool that I like to use. It's called Gallup's Strength Finder, or it's part of the Clifton Strength Finder tool. And according to their research, there's 34 strengths. And everyone has these strengths, but you are stronger or in some of them. So they are more natural to you. And these skills identify how you think about things, how you feel about things, and how you approach them. So they have one test that you can do, and then afterwards you can either get all 34 in order, or you can just get the top 5.
Okay.
And I really like this. My husband and I actually did this before we got married as kind of like a pre-marriage preparation for understanding each other.
Nice.
And it really helped me to understand him better, and I think he also understands me better. And I thought I really understood him, but that just made so much more sense. For example, you get the test and you need to say if you lean towards A or B in a question, but you only have a limited amount of time. And afterwards, the person conducting these tests, so we did the test online, but we had someone that went through the results with us.
Oh.
And she asked my husband, did this test frustrate you? And he said, yes.
Yeah.
He wanted more time to think about it. And in his strengths, because she asked him specifically, because one of his strengths actually brought this out, because he needs time to think about things, to analyze it, and to pick the correct answer. So even though he was frustrated and he felt there wasn't enough time, it was apparent in his strengths that that's how he approaches things and how he thinks about it. So that was very interesting. But then you get your 5 strengths. And I feel they are very accurate. None of these strengths were actually strengths that I would consider saying, I'm strong in this beforehand. Or this is one of my skills.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very interesting. And then I thought, okay, that could be a fun exercise. Let's let my team members do this and see how it goes. And everyone's strengths vary so much. So you really realize that even though there's 34 strengths, your unique combination is so unique. And what you bring to the table is completely different than the rest of your team members. And how you can actually use this in team settings, but also in your personal life. So then I like to discuss one strength per session.
Okay.
So first, giving an overview. So the tool itself can give you a video, give you an overview about the skill or the strength. And then you can discuss, they also have some points about how can you use it in your day-to-day. But also how can you manage someone with this approach or your strength. And then what to look out for, because some of the strengths, there's, for example, if you are an includer and you want to include people, you actually need to be aware of that not everyone always wants to be included. And it's not always a time and place to include someone. So you need to strategically realize when to do this and when not. Gotcha. So it also gives you be aware of this, but use your strength like this in your team and in your personal life. So I really like that. And then you can actually go and practice it. And as I said, there were answers that I didn't expect or ever would say about myself. But after I actually got these results, I realized this is actually how I think about things and how I approach it. So I like this tool.
Yeah, I would love to. I think I'm going to try it out after. I'll put it in the show notes as well for people that are interested. Is it free to use? Can I just, or do I have to have a...
You buy a voucher or a code. I can't remember the exact prices. I think it's fine. 50 euros or something.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I wonder because specifically when you said, I learned a lot about myself and also my partner. I think I also know my partner, especially if you get to a point where you're okay, we're getting married. Yeah. But it's really funny to have kind of those new insights. When you said 34 strengths, 34 sounds like a lot to me. But yeah, when you look at then the combination of what you're good at and even, let's say, the amount of how good you are at specific skills, I get also the kind of uniqueness of a person in a specific team. When you talked about inclusion, my mind went to someone that's currently in my team. I'm likely. So I would also be very interested in, let's say, the skills of my team and see if I would have identified them beforehand or I can see that in behavior. I really like that. It's one of the tools I think I don't utilize, but I might now because I think it could be a lot of fun. Do you usually introduce things that you try out first, maybe on your personal life or by yourself in a team? Because I want to be hesitant in what I introduce, because otherwise, if people are feeling we're moving this way now, or there's a new thing here, it can also be kind of unstable.
Yeah, I definitely like to try things out first. Perhaps on myself, on an approach. This is how I thought about it. This is how I break it up. As an example, yesterday I had a talk at the conference. Mm-hmm. So earlier this year, we could submit topics to be considered to have the talk. And during this process, I really enjoyed the process. So I thought this is fun, and I learned a lot about myself and about things I'm passionate about during this process. So I thought this could be a fun exercise as well. So now with some of my team members, those who are interested, obviously not everyone is always interested in everything, but those who are interested, I followed the same approach, saying if you would now present at a conference, what would you like to talk about? Go and think about it. Because you need to think, do you want to present something very technical? Or do you want to look at more of a soft skills approach, or identifying, for example, imposter syndrome, or what would you want to talk about? You can pick any topic that you want. So go and think about that. And then later you go, okay, now I have my topic. Now I need to find a title. After your title, get an overview. Get your key takeaways. Break it up into sections. Break it up into slides. Add a script. Then practice it. And there you have a presentation. Practice it in front of the mirror. See what you need to change, what you need to do, gain the confidence. So that's the approach I followed. And the first part about picking a topic, that was fun.
Yeah.
That's where, because you think, perhaps I would like to talk about this. And then later, no, perhaps I would like to talk about this, or I can combine this. And just the research and the introspection that actually goes into what do you think is important? What lessons did you learn? Or what would you like to share? So I really enjoyed that. So that's something that I first did myself, and then I realized, this is really fun. And now I'm trying it with my team members as well.
That's great. I like that a lot. I think about picking a topic for me is actually not the most fun part, to be honest, because I have okay, is this going to be interesting? Do I really want to talk about this? I don't have, let's say, multiple options. I have a hard time picking one. But then when I actually have one and I go through the motions of, let's say, creating the content, then I'm like, yeah, this is great. But everything beforehand, maybe it's my trouble starting things in the end. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation so far, Esther. This has been great. I'm going to re-listen back to it and think of some of the tools I want to incorporate in my own way of working. Is there anything you still want to share before we round off?
Nothing that comes to mind right now.
All right. Then thank you for joining us. It's been a blast, and I'm going to round it off here. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, leave some comments in the comment section below. I'll put Esther's social there as well. So thanks again for listening. We'll see you on the next one.